The overlooked defense force. The grand hall of the Galactic Concordat erupted in barely contained laughter as Supreme Admiral Thrixian finished presenting the latest military statistics. The massive crystalline chamber, designed to accommodate representatives of over 300 species, amplified every snicker and chuckle until they became a symphony of mockery. "I apologize, Admiral," said High Counselor Zyvex, her translucent tentacles rippling with amusement. "But you expect us to believe that these humans wish to join our defensive coalition with merely 30,000 troops?" The holographic display in the center of the hall rotated slowly, showing the modest fleet of Earth ships alongside their personnel numbers. Compared to the billions-strong armies of the Vexari Dominion or the trillion autonomous battle units of the Mechanus Collective, it seemed like a statistical error rather than a legitimate military force. "The Galaxian Empire deploys more janitors than that," rumbled Ambassador Cord, his armored exoskeleton clicking as he shook with laughter. "Perhaps they misunderstood the application requirements." Admiral Thrixian's crested head dipped in acknowledgement. "I have verified these numbers repeatedly, Council. The humans insist this force is sufficient for their contribution quota." In the observation gallery above, Lieutenant Commander Maya Reyes of the United Earth Defense Force stood motionless, her dark eyes fixed on the proceedings below. At 36 years old, she had spent half her life in military service, rising through the ranks of Earth's elite Special Operations Division. Her weathered face betrayed no emotion as the Galactic representatives dismissed her people's military prowess with casual disdain. Beside her, technical specialist Eli Chen crossed his arms. "They really don't get it, do they?" he whispered. "They've never had to," Maya replied, her voice barely audible. "The luxury of numbers." The Concordat had existed for over 8,000 years, a loose alliance of spacefaring civilizations bound by mutual defense agreements and trade protocols. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 43 years ago, making them infants in the cosmic community. Their application to join the defensive coalition, the military arm of the Concordat, had been viewed as premature at best, laughable at worst. "I move to table this application until the humans can present a more substantial contribution," announced Ambassador Cord. "Perhaps in another century or two." Maya's comm unit vibrated against her wrist. The message was brief. "Return to Artemis. Station, Priority Alpha." 3 months later, the first alerts came from the outer rim of Concordat space. Automated monitoring stations in the Vega sector went dark one by one, creating an expanding sphere of silence that moved with alarming speed toward the more populated systems. The Galactic Concordat convened an emergency session, with representatives appearing via hologram as travel between systems became increasingly hazardous. Admiral Thrixian's normally composed demeanor had given way to visible stress, his scaled skin pale and his crest flattened. "The entity designates itself as the Confluence," he reported grimly. "All attempts at communication have failed. They appear to be a collective consciousness controlling billions of biomechanical units. Their only discernible goal is consumption and assimilation of all organic and technological resources." High Counselor Zyvex's tentacles coiled tightly around her suspended platform. "What of our defensive forces?" The Admiral's response was bleak. "The Galaxian 7th Fleet, 8 million ships strong, engaged them at the Proxima boundary. They were defeated in under 6 hours." A stunned silence fell over the assembly. "The Vexari Legion's response?" asked Ambassador Cord, his earlier humor now replaced with growing dread. 12 billion ground troops deployed to protect the colony worlds in the Arcturus sector," Thrixian replied. "Last communication indicated 86% losses within the first day of engagement. No further transmissions have been received." The Mechanus representative, a shimmering cloud of nanites forming a roughly humanoid shape, spoke with an emotionless, synthesized voice. "Our autonomous combat units engaged the confluence at 14 strategic points. 1 trillion units deployed. Current operational status, 0.003%. Panic rippled through the assembly as the implications became clear. The mightiest military forces in the galaxy were being systematically annihilated. What of the lesser powers? Zivex asked desperately. The Tellurians, the Dracosi, the humans. Admiral Thrixian consulted his data terminal. Most minor forces have retreated to protect their homeworlds. The humans... He paused, double-checking the information. The humans have deployed their entire defense force to the Tau Ceti system, directly in the confluence's projected path. Ambassador Cord's armored fist struck his podium. Suicide? 30,000 against what we estimate to be billions of confluence units? Nevertheless, Thrixian continued, they have established a defensive perimeter and refused evacuation orders. They've transmitted only one message. We stand here. On the bridge of the UED's Thermopylae, Maya Reyes stood before the tactical display, watching as the vast confluence swarm approached their position. The ship, one of Earth's 30 specialized deep space vessels, hung in formation with its sisters, creating a seemingly insignificant barrier between the oncoming threat and the populated worlds beyond. All units report ready, Commander, said Eli, now serving as her second in command. Spectre teams 1 through 6 are in position. Talon Squad has deployed to the surface of Tau Ceti 4. Maya nodded, her expression calm despite the overwhelming odds displayed on the screen. And the civilians? Evacuation complete. The system is clear except for us. Around them, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and unhurried. Unlike the massive warships of other concordate species, which required crews of thousands, each Earth vessel operated with fewer than 100 personnel. The nearest concordate reinforcements? Maya asked. 3 days out minimum, Eli replied. They're consolidating forces for a major counteroffensive. We're on our own until then. Maya allowed herself a small smile. So, business as usual. The first wave of the confluence emerged from hyperspace like a dark tide. Thousands of biomechanical ships ranging from small fighter analogs to massive carrier vessels. They moved with a singular purpose, their formations shifting and adapting, with the perfect coordination only possible through a hive mind. They're scanning us, reported Lieutenant Santos from the sensor station. No signs of aggression yet. Wait, they're broadcasting. A guttural, multi-toned voice resonated through the bridge speakers. Lesser life forms. Your resistance is inefficient. Submit to absorption and achieve perfection within the confluence. Maya straightened her uniform and stepped forward. This is Commander Maya Reyes of the United Earth Defense Force. We decline your offer. This system is under our protection. A pause followed. Perhaps the closest thing to confusion the hive mind could experience. Your numbers insufficient, your technology primitive, your biomass negligible, your defense futile. Maybe, Maya replied. Or maybe you haven't encountered humans before. She nodded to Eli. Initiate Protocol Leonidas. Throughout the human fleet, specialized systems activated simultaneously. Unlike the brute force approach favored by the major concordate powers, human military doctrine had evolved from centuries of asymmetric warfare on Earth. When consistently outnumbered and outgunned, humanity had developed strategies that capitalized on their unique advantages: adaptability, unpredictability, and psychological warfare. All ships execute Phase 1, Maya ordered calmly. The human vessels unleashed a barrage, not of conventional weapons, but of precisely modulated quantum field disruptors. Technology developed specifically to target the neural network communications that bound hive minds together. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Sections of the Confluence Armada suddenly lost coordination, ships colliding with each other as their shared consciousness fragmented. Phase 2, Maya continued, unmoved by the temporary success. Spectre, teams, you have green light. Throughout the system, cloaked infiltration craft that had been positioned days earlier revealed themselves, emerging from hiding to strike at key nodes in the Confluence fleet. Each 6-person team executed precision strikes against targets identified by Earth's advanced AI combat systems. The Confluence responded with overwhelming force, billions of individual units adjusting tactics to counter the unexpected threat. What they couldn't account for was the fundamental difference in their opponent's approach. Where the major powers of the Concordat relied on overwhelming numbers and firepower, humans had always excelled at asymmetric warfare. As the first day of battle stretched into night, the tactical display showed heavy losses among the human forces. 3 of their capital ships had been destroyed, with 7 more reporting critical damage. Yet the Confluence advance had stalled completely, something no other species had accomplished. Maya stood on the bridge, exhaustion evident in her stance, but determination unwavering in her eyes. Status report. Eli, his uniform scorched from putting out a fire during a direct hit, consulted his tablet. We've lost the Leonidas, the Spartan, and the Alamo. 14 Spectre teams still operational. The Confluence has lost approximately 8% of their total force. Not enough, Maya murmured, but we've proven the concept. Activate Phase 3 and get me a direct line to Admiral Thrixian. As the battle for Tau Ceti raged on, the Galactic Concordat watched in stunned silence as 30,000 humans accomplished what billions of other warriors could not, and they were just getting started. When numbers don't matter, Admiral Thrixian stared at the tactical display with mandibles twitching in disbelief. The holographic representation of the Tau Ceti system pulsed with activity as the battle entered its 3rd day. According to every predictive model, the human defensive line should have collapsed within hours. Instead, the thin barrier of Earthships had not only held but had somehow inflicted disproportionate damage on the Confluence forces. Impossible, muttered Ambassador Cord, his massive form hunched forward in concentration. Their tactics make no sense. They're sacrificing defensive integrity for what exactly? High Counselor Zyvex's analytical mind worked quickly. They're not fighting to win through attrition, she observed. They know they can't. They're fighting to understand. On the view screen, Commander Reyes appeared, her image flickering with static. The bridge of the Thermopylae around her was dim, illuminated only by emergency lighting. Smoke drifted through the background, and the sounds of damage control teams working frantically could be heard. Admiral, Maya acknowledged, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. Request permission to implement Protocol Hydra. Thrixian hesitated. Commander, your forces have performed admirably, but the Confluence numbers remain overwhelming. Our reinforcements are still 26 hours out. Perhaps it's time to consider a strategic withdrawal. A humorless smile crossed Maya's face. With respect, Admiral, withdrawal isn't in our operational parameters. We've identified the Confluence control architecture and have developed countermeasures. Protocol Hydra is ready. What exactly is Protocol Hydra? Asked Zyvex, leaning toward the transmission. Better if we show you, Maya replied, requesting clearance to proceed. Thrixian exchanged glances with the council members present. None of them understood how the humans had lasted this long, let alone how they planned to continue. But with the Confluence consuming world after world, they had few options. Clearance granted, Commander. May your ancestors guide your path. Maya nodded once. Thermopylae out. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in tense silence. Deep within the Confluence armada, something unprecedented was occurring. The biomechanical ships had formed a protective sphere around their central command node, a massive structure resembling a neural ganglion the size of a small moon. This was standard procedure when the collective encountered significant resistance, centralizing control to better coordinate their billions of units. What wasn't standard was the presence of human infiltrators at the very heart of this command structure. Spectre Team Alpha, led by Captain Naomi Wright, moved with practiced precision through the pulsing organic corridors of the command node. Each member of the 6-person team wore specialized infiltration armor, designed not only for protection, but to mimic the biochemical signatures of the Confluence's own drones. Central chamber ahead, whispered Lieutenant James Cato, the team's sensor specialist. Heavy activity. I'm reading what appears to be the primary neural nexus. Naomi checked the status of the microquantum device strapped to her back, the culmination of Earth's most advanced technology and the central component of Protocol Hydra. Status on the other teams? Teams Bravo through Echo all report in position, replied Sergeant Miguel Diaz, the communications expert. Awaiting your signal. Naomi nodded, her expression grim behind her visor. Commander Reyes, Alpha Team in position, ready to initiate. Thousands of kilometers away, on the bridge of the heavily damaged Thermopylae, Maya received the transmission. Around her, the remnants of her fleet continued their seemingly hopeless battle, drawing the confluence's attention with increasingly desperate maneuvers. All ships, execute Hydra Gambit, she ordered. Full-spectrum electromagnetic burst on my mark. Throughout the system, the remaining Earth vessels synchronized their systems. Unlike the massive warships of other species, human vessels were designed with adaptability as their primary characteristic. Now, they reconfigured their engines and weapon systems simultaneously, channeling energy in ways their designers had anticipated but hoped would never be necessary. The human fleet erupted with energy, not as weapons fire but as a precisely modulated pattern of electromagnetic pulses. To an outside observer, it appeared as though the ships were suffering catastrophic power failures. In reality, they were creating a system-wide distraction, flooding all communication channels with noise. Inside the Confluence command node, Naomi's team seized the moment of confusion. Now, the infiltration teams moved as one, each placing their quantum devices at predetermined points throughout the neural nexus. These weren't simply bombs, they were something far more sophisticated. Earth scientists had discovered that the Confluence's hive mind operated on quantum entanglement principles, similar to human consciousness, but scaled to a galactic level. The devices activated, generating fields that didn't destroy the neural connections but rewrote them, introducing a concept the Confluence had never encountered: individual identity. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout the Armada, ships suddenly ceased their coordinated movements as the unified consciousness that controlled them fragmented into billions of newly individualized entities. Confusion gave way to chaos as the formerly perfect coordination disintegrated. On the bridge of the Thermopylae, Maya watched the tactical display transform. "It's working," she said quietly, more to herself than to her crew. "Eli, status of our infiltration teams?" Eli's fingers danced across his console. "Teams Bravo and Charlie have reached extraction points. Delta reports heavy resistance. Alpha and Echo." He hesitated. No response from Alpha or Echo. Maya closed her eyes briefly. Every loss cut deep. These weren't anonymous troops among billions. These were people she knew, had trained with, shared meals with. But she had always understood the mathematics of their situation. Humanity couldn't match the sheer numbers of other species, so each human life had to count for more. Continue. Monitoring. All ships initiate Phase 2 of Protocol Hydra. The remaining Earth vessels shifted tactics, now targeting specific Confluence ships identified as potential rally points, where the fragmented consciousness might reconsolidate. Precision strikes replaced the earlier defensive posture, with each human ship functioning as an autonomous combat unit, while maintaining perfect coordination with the others. In the concorded emergency chamber, the assembled representatives watched in astonishment. "They're winning," breathed Ambassador Cord, his earlier mockery forgotten. "How is this possible?" Admiral Thrixian's analytical mind had finally grasped the human strategy. "They never attempted to match the Confluence's numbers," he explained. "They targeted its fundamental nature instead. Rather than fighting the body, they attacked the mind. A distinction our own military planners failed to identify," noted High Counselor Zivex. Despite 8 millennia of combined military experience. As they watched, the once unified Confluence Armada devolved into disorganized clusters, some fleeing, others fighting among themselves, many simply drifting powerless in space. The seemingly invincible force that had threatened galactic civilization was unraveling before their eyes. "Admiral," called a communications officer, "incoming transmission from Commander Reyes." Maya's image appeared once more, though the quality had deteriorated further. Blood streaked one side of her face, and the bridge around her was now barely recognizable as such. Status report, Commander, Thrixian requested formally, though the answer was evident on the tactical displays. The Confluence Central Command structure has been neutralized, Maya replied, her voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. Their forces are in disarray. I recommend your incoming fleet focus on containment rather than engagement. Many of the individual units may be salvageable once separated from the hive mind. Salvageable? Questioned Zyvex. You mean to rehabilitate them? They're victims as much as perpetrators, Counselor. Before they were Confluence, they were individual beings from countless worlds. Our infiltration teams recovered data suggesting the hive mind began as a single entity that forcibly assimilated others. The council members exchanged looks of surprise. While they had marshaled forces to destroy the Confluence utterly, the Yaur humans had somehow found time to consider the ethical implications and look beyond the immediate threat. Your casualties, Commander? Asked Thrixian quietly. Maya's expression tightened. Significant. We've lost 22 of our 30 ships. Ground forces report approximately 40% operational capacity. Infiltration teams. She paused. We've lost contact with 11 of our 15 deployed teams. The numbers stunned the Council into silence. By any military standard, such losses would be considered catastrophic, the virtual annihilation of their fighting force. Yet Maya reported them with steady composure. Commander, began Ambassador Cord, struggling to find appropriate words. Your forces have suffered. How can you possibly? We knew the mathematics going in, Ambassador, Maya interrupted. We always have. Humanity has never had the luxury of overwhelming numbers. We've always had to make each life count for more. Her eyes, though exhausted, burned with quiet intensity. That's something the Confluence couldn't understand, and something I think the Concordat had forgotten. As the surviving Earthships regrouped, salvaging what they could from their destroyed sisters, the Galactic Concordat began to reassess their understanding of their newest members. The humans 30,000 had achieved what billions of others could not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they approached warfare fundamentally differently. And as the first Concordat reinforcements arrived at Tau Ceti, they found the human survivors already implementing recovery operations not just for their own people, but for the fragmented Confluence victims as well. The tiny army had not merely survived, it had transformed the nature of the conflict itself. Humanity's edge, the grand hall of the Galactic Concordat, was silent as Commander Maya Reyes stood before the assembled representatives. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Tau Ceti, and the galaxy was still reeling from both the Confluence threat and the unexpected manner of its defeat. Maya herself bore the visible marks of the conflict. Her left arm was now a cybernetic replacement, and a regeneration patch covered one side of her neck where Confluence biotoxins had nearly claimed her life. High Counselor Zyvex spoke first, her tentacles now respectfully still. Commander Reyes, the Concordat has convened this special session to formally acknowledge the service of the United Earth Defense Force. Without your intervention, our analysts project total Confluence victory within 60 standard days. Maya nodded once, maintaining the formal military bearing expected for such occasions. Behind her stood the surviving senior officers of her command. Eli Chen, now promoted to commander after the loss of the Thermopylae, Captain Lena Volkov, whose innovative engine modifications had saved 3 damaged ships, and Major Derek Okoro, the only surviving Spectre team leader. The Concordat would also like to understand, continued Ambassador Cord, his tone respectful, where once there had been mockery, how your forces succeeded where others failed. The military disparity was significant. A subtle understatement. The Confluence had outnumbered the human forces by at least 50 million to 1. Maya stepped forward, her artificial fingers tapping a control on her wrist device. The central holographic display activated, showing tactical recordings from the battle. The fundamental error in the Concordat's approach was assumption, she began. For 8,000 years, your civilizations have equated military power with numerical superiority. More ships, more troops, more firepower. This created a blind spot in your strategic thinking. The display showed the massive Galaxian and Vexari forces engaging the confluence directly, trillion-strong armadas meeting in head-on confrontations that inevitably ended in defeat for the concordate forces. Humanity never developed this assumption, Maya continued. Throughout our history, we've frequently found ourselves outnumbered and outgunned. We've had to develop different approaches. The display shifted to show the specialized Earth vessels, highlighting their adaptive systems and unconventional configurations. Our ships aren't designed to win traditional engagements, explained Eli, stepping forward. They're designed to change the nature of the conflict itself. Each vessel can reconfigure its systems on the fly, adapting to new threats within minutes, rather than requiring complete rebuilds like concordate capital ships. But hardware is only part of the equation, added Major Okoro, his voice rough from damage sustained during his team's escape. Our primary advantage was philosophical. The confluence was a perfect unity, billions of components acting as one. The concordate forces are the opposite, trillions of individuals attempting to coordinate through hierarchical command structures. Humans, continued Maya, operate between these extremes. We maintain individual identity and initiative, while achieving levels of coordinated action that both the confluence and concordate found impossible to predict. She gestured, and the display showed footage from within the confluence command node. The infiltration teams moving with near-perfect coordination despite operating independently. Spectre teams undergo a process we call neural synchronization, she explained. Not a hive mind, but a training regimen that allows small groups to anticipate each other's actions without verbal communication. Each team member retains complete autonomy while functioning as part of a cohesive unit. Admiral Thrixian leaned forward, his scientific curiosity evident. Such coordination without technological assistance seems implausible. It's based on human mirror neurons, explained Captain Volkov, the fleet's chief scientific officer. Our brains naturally evolved to model others' actions and intentions. We've simply refined this natural capacity to extraordinary levels through specialized training. The display shifted again, showing a three-dimensional model of the quantum devices used to disrupt the confluence hive mind. The critical insight, Maya continued, came when we realized that the confluence wasn't simply a technological network but a quantum consciousness. Our scientists noted similarities to human consciousness at the quantum level, but scaled to galactic proportions. You weaponized consciousness itself, murmured High Counselor Zevex, her academic background in xenobiology allowing her to grasp the implications. Not weaponized, corrected Maya firmly. Liberated. The quantum disruptors didn't destroy consciousness, they individualized it. Each component of the confluence was once a separate being before assimilation. Our devices restored their capacity for individual identity. The display showed current footage of rehabilitation centers where former confluence units, some humanoid, others utterly alien, were gradually recovering their pre-assimilation identities. We estimate approximately 68% of assimilated beings can be restored, said Eli. The remainder were either too damaged in the process or were constructed artificially by the original confluence entity. Ambassador Cord shook his massive head in wonder. While our forces focused solely on destruction, yours simultaneously fought and sought to save the very enemy you were fighting. They weren't the enemy, Maya replied simply. They were victims. Our actual enemy was a system of thought. The idea that unity required the erasure of individuality. A murmur ran through the assembly as representatives grappled with this perspective. For millennia, the Concordat had approached military matters in terms of straightforward metrics, numbers, firepower, territory controlled. The human approach transcended these limitations by considering the philosophical underpinnings of the conflict itself. Admiral Thrixian rose from his seat, his formal gesture requesting attention from the assembly. In light of these revelations, I move that the United Earth Defense Forces application to the Defensive Coalition be accepted immediately, not as junior partners, but with full strategic input privileges. The motion passed unanimously. Later, in a smaller chamber reserved for military planning, Maya met with the Concordate's senior defense staff. The atmosphere had transformed from the condescension of their first meeting to one of genuine respect and curiosity. "Commander," began Admiral Thrixian, "our analysts have been reviewing your tactical innovations. We believe they could revolutionize Concordate defense doctrine, but many questions remain." "Such as?" prompted Maya. "Your forces never exceeded 30,000, yet you field specialized units like the Spectre teams that require extensive training. How do you maintain readiness with such limited numbers?" Maya smiled slightly. "Quality over quantity, Admiral. Every human in our defense force undergoes a minimum of 5 years of basic training before specialization. Our personnel serve longer terms than your forces, often 20 to 30 years, accumulating experience and skills that make each individual exponentially more effective. But the resource investment per soldier must be astronomical," noted a Vexari general. "It is," acknowledged Eli, "approximately 86 times higher than the Concordate average. But the return on that investment is a force that can adapt to virtually any threat. There's a human military philosopher named Sun Tzu," added Maya. "Over 2,000 years ago, he wrote that supreme excellence in warfare is to win without fighting. Our goal has never been to field the largest army or win the most battles. It's to understand conflicts so thoroughly that we can resolve them with minimal loss of life, on all sides." The Concordate officers exchanged glances. This approach ran counter to millennia of established military doctrine, yet the results were undeniable. "We have much to learn from each other," admitted Admiral Thrixian, "though I confess it is humbling to realize how quickly we dismissed your contributions based solely on numerical assessments." "A natural error," Maya replied diplomatically. "Numbers are easy to measure. Understanding, creativity, adaptability, these qualities require different metrics." As the meeting concluded and the officers filed out, High Counselor Zivex approached Maya privately. The counselor's translucent appendages moved with subtle gestures indicating respect rather than the dismissive patterns of their first encounter. "Commander, there is something I've been curious about," she said quietly. "Your forces sustained casualties that would devastate most military organizations, over 70% of your total strength. Yet I sense no hesitation in your commitment to continued service." Maya was silent for a moment, considering her response. "Counselor, humanity has always understood something that perhaps other species, with your numerical advantages, have never needed to grasp. Each life is irreplaceable, each loss profound. We don't accept casualties casually. Yet you accepted this mission knowing the likely outcome." "We did," Maya acknowledged, "because we also understand that sometimes the mathematics of sacrifice is necessary. 30,000 to save trillions? Those are odds any human would accept." Zevex's appendages rippled in the pattern indicating deep thought. "A paradox. You value individual lives more highly than many concordate species, yet you willingly risk them in greater proportion." "Not a paradox," corrected Maya gently. "A different understanding of what makes life valuable. It's not merely existing, but choosing, acting, sacrificing if necessary. We've never had the luxury of overwhelming numbers, so we've had to make each life count for more." As Maya departed for the Earth diplomatic compound, she passed through the grand atrium where a new memorial was being constructed. Unlike the massive monuments to concordate military campaigns that featured stylized armies of millions, this one was starkly different. A simple wall inscribed with the names of the 21,483 humans who had fallen in the Battle of Tau Ceti. Eli joined her, looking up at the partially completed memorial. "They still don't quite get it, do they?" Maya shook her head. "They're trying. It's difficult to discard 8,000 years of thinking. Do you think they'll ever understand why 30,000 humans could accomplish what trillions of their forces couldn't?" Maya watched as a group of concordate representatives approached the memorial, their movements respectful as they read the individual names etched in the stone. "Perhaps. Understanding takes time. And in the meantime?" She smiled slightly. "In the meantime, The galaxy has stopped laughing at the tiny army. As news of the Confluence's defeat spread throughout the concordate worlds, the perception of humanity underwent a radical shift. What had once been dismissed as an insignificant species from an unremarkable system was now viewed with a mixture of awe and curiosity. The humans' limited numbers, once the source of mockery, became recognized as the catalyst for their unprecedented innovation and adaptability. And throughout concordate military academies, a new curriculum began to appear, studying the battle that changed galactic warfare forever. The day when 30,000 stood against billions and proved that in the mathematics of conflict, quality could indeed overcome quantity. When faced with overwhelming odds, humanity didn't simply fight harder. They changed the very nature of the fight itself.